Welcome to Model Engineers Laser. My name is Holly and this is part 7 of our jack build. Having spent a bit of money on your build frame if you're using one and all your parts on the last few pay slips, hopefully that work will have brought you around to your next payday and you're in a position to start looking at your castings. I'm just going to spend a few moments now going through those castings. Just because now is a good time in your build, depending on how you're progressing to get those ordered. They're not standard off-the-shelf items all the time, so you might have to wait a bit for them. So it's always good to get the order in. We've got these from Simon at Model Earth. The list of the castings are available on Summerland's Chuffers website. We've talked about them before, and they have a full list of what you need and also what you don't need. It just depends on how much detail you're going to go into with your build. Now, the bits that you do need are either these exact ones or something similar, or you can make your own, but the engine won't function without these parts. So I'm just going to move the frame back a little bit to show you some of the parts. Now, these are the ones that you actually need, and the first one that I'm going to show you is the Chimney Cap and Base, which is that one there. You'll need a bit of tube for the actual chimney, but we'll come to that in another video. The other one is your Smokebox Door. It's quite self-explanatory, that as a part. And the other one is your Smokebox Dart. The dart's a very good casting. Looks quite nice and tidy. Can you see that? So that's nice. The door's a good casting. It'll need, there's a bit of the sprue will need taking off there. Look at that one. Yeah, that's a good casting as well. Again, it just needs a little bit of attention, but not a lot of work. So these are the parts that you actually need for your engine to function. So if that's all you order, then that's absolutely fine. We're not talking mega money at the time of filming. I mean, we've paid £8.50, £9 and £6 for these. That's at the time of filming. I can't say if you're watching this in a few years' time, the prices won't have altered, but just to give you an idea of how much that will cost. I'm just going to run through now the ones that aren't necessary. So this depends again on how much detail you want to go into. For those of you who want to go into a lot of detail, we will be fitting all of these. So don't think we're going to miss anything out. And it's completely up to you if you fit them or not. But for consistency and the purpose of this video, we're going to fit everything. So the first one I'm going to show you is the water filler, which goes on the front foot plate. There is a hole through it already on the welded frames and on the conversion kit. So it's really needs something there, but not having it won't stop the engine from running. If you have a lathe, you could make one. It's not the most difficult parts to turn if you're au fait with it, but you don't have to. It's £3.50, does that say? It's not a lot of money to purchase, but like I say, that's purely cosmetic. The next one is the sand dome. You see that? So that sits on top of the boiler. Again, purely cosmetic. Serves no function. Next one, what's this one? That is the blower elbow. So that will need a hole drilling in the side of the smoke box to mount it. It'll probably need a little bit of copper wire to simulate where the pipe is. But again, it's a dummy. It'll work without it. It's up to you. What's next? What's in the pile? The whistle. Quite nice and tidy. Serves absolutely no function apart from cosmetic. You will need to drill a hole in the cab for that. The hole doesn't already come pre-drilled in the cab because not everybody wants to fit them. But again, we will be doing it, so you'll see me drill the hole in another video. What else have we got? Okay, so that is the oiler for the regulator. So that sits on top of the dome. else have we got? So these are the Roscoe Lubricators that lubricate the cylinders if they functioned. So get a set of those, and then finally you need to order 2 sets of boiler clacks. Again, if you're fitting these, you're going to need a bit of copper wire, again just to simulate the pipes, and that will need holes drilling into the roundhouse boiler cladding. That's going to be a little bit tricky, so you can have fun watching me on that video when that one comes along in the future. And those are all the parts. So I've just brought the build frame into shot, and I've turned it around so you can see the cranks, because now we're going to fit our coupling rods. In the pack that you get from Roundhouse, everything's already separated and heat sealed, so your coupling rods are the ones that are symmetrical each side. There are a set of rods that aren't symmetrical. We're using the ones that are, and there are 2 in there. I'm a beginner just like you can probably just see just out of shot. I've got the instructions. I'm not going to pretend that I know what I'm doing, because that's not true at all. So the first one, all the washers and everything you need are in the kit, including a little spanner for you to fit it in. We showed that in a previous video, the little spanner set. So first we need to put a washer on our crank pin, and the instructions say place a 5BA steel washer over one of the rear crank pins, and then push a coupling rod after it. Check that the two lugs on the top there, so you've got 2 on the top and 1 on the bottom. So you need to make sure that the 2 lugs are pointing towards the top. So make sure that you've got your build frame the right way around. So that goes on there like that. Can you see? So pointed to the top, we've done that. So connect the front end of the coupling rod to its outside crank using a short crank pin with another 5BA steel washer between the rod and the crank. So this is where the build frame comes in handy. So we're going to put the crank pin and the washer behind it, she says, and then that pinches on there. Oh, I've got that cross threaded. I'm just being weak. Probably still got a bit of paint in there or something that I missed. There we go. There we go. A bit too tight. There we go. They're connected together. So now we need to do exactly the same on the other side. Now, depending on how you're doing this and how your brain works, because everybody works differently, you can just unlock the brake on your build frame, spin it around, and do the same again. But now you have to remember that your frame is upside down. So when you put your washer on, you need to make sure that the 2 lugs are facing the top of the loco. So because my loco is upside down, my rod needs to go on upside down. And then again, you need to make sure that the washer fits behind the rod and between the crank. Now, if you're not using a build frame and you're just turning it around, obviously that's not going to be an issue for yourself, but just be aware that if you are using a build frame, don't put it on upside down. And there we have it. I don't know a little bit too tight. And there we go. Undo that and turn it round a little bit. You should be able to see. As they, I think it's a bit of running in, it's a bit tight. You see they're not in sync, the 90 degrees as we talked about in a previous video. It needs a bit of running in. That's okay. I'm happy with that. So those are our coupling rods fitted. So the next part of the build is fitting the cylinders. So as I said, I'm just following the instructions. The next stage, as the instructions say, is about screwing the cylinders. It refers to the 4 holes on the frame. So if you're using the roundhouse frames, there were 4 holes here, as I've only got 2 because the other 2 are redundant for Jack. So just be aware when you're building, it says out of the 4 holes, we've got 2. It says about screwing these on as such, like that, and bending this exhaust out of the way. The exhaust is already tapped to fit into the cylinder box, and it talks about in the instructions bending the exhaust out of the way and being careful not to snap them where it enters the cylinder box. Not to worry about the final position of the exhaust at this stage because it does it later. Now, yes, I agree with not worrying about its final position and about getting it as close as you can. My concern is that once this is screwed on, about locking this in, how are you going to lock it in to unscrew it and lock it in if it's already in place and bent? So although the instructions don't say it at this point, I'm going to, because I think it's going to be a problem later and I can't find anywhere in the instructions that refers to it. So to take this forward, I've got a bit of a Loctite thread locker there. This is a low adhesive one. Also got a bit of kitchen roll because I can't be trusted not to make a mess. Now I'm going to unscrew it. Is that all right in the shot? Let me just see. Yeah, that looks good. Now, take the lid off. Pull to unlock. Now, just want, it's quite watery. There you go, you can see, just need a tiny amount to roll around the thread. Quite watery, so it should go around quite nicely. And then thread it into the block as tight as you can with a finger tight. There's a nice little flat on the end here you can use just to give it a final tweak. You just need to leave that a couple of minutes to set, and do the same on this one. Just tiny bit, roll it round, probably a little bit too much on there, let's have it on the kitchen roll, roll it round. Put it in the block, and again I'm just going to take advantage of the little flat on the end, give it a little finger tight, and then that needs to set for just a few minutes to make sure it's nice and set. I'm just going to move these out of the way. While those are setting, I'm going to talk about bending the exhaust. Now I've got a scrap bit of pipe here just to show you why we're doing this. So this has come from a tube, so it's not a roll of copper, so it's not very flat. Now, to bend them, we've got to be very careful that we don't just put a kink and a fold in the pipe as we bend it. And ideally, we'd like to use something like a pipe bender tool, which should be very helpful. However, the problem with this particular pipe bender is that it doesn't actually get close enough. I don't really want to let the cylinder set. You can't really get close enough with the cylinders there to bend the pipe. So what we're going to do is actually use a scrap bit of pipe to make a template to make my bend. So I think it'll all come to light when I bend the pipe and show you what's happening. So I'm just going to, I'm sure I don't need to explain to you how to use a pipe bender, but if you do, if I turned it around the other way, so less backwards, you can see what's happening. So I've also got the longest bit of copper pipe to do this with, but never mind. Put those out of harm's way. Right, so I'm going to rest the pipe. There's different grooves here in the right size grooves. That's my first one, and anchor it on this bit of bar that comes out here. So it'll sit in the groove there and on there, and this needs to be up and out the way here. I'm just going to sit that there. Now I'm going to roll that round, and that has a corresponding groove in that set on the top. So that's now sandwiched into place. I'm going to try and do this so you guys can see on camera. One sec, brilliant. Is about creating a bend all the way around. Try and do it without bending it around and taking the camera out. So it's got little lines on there to help you see when you've got a nice 90-degree bend, which is what we want there. Brilliant. There we go. That can come back out. And that's done with the pipe bender. Now I'm going to bring my build frame forward and zoom out. So sorry if the camera goes a bit wobbly while I zoom out, so you can see what the problem is with this. Now I deliberately put this edge flush with the nearest point of where my cylinder block could possibly reach, just to demonstrate to you why we couldn't use it. Now let's just see where the camera is and hold it like that. If we manage to put this end right up flush to the cylinder block and bend our pipe that comes with the roundhouse kit that's fitted to the cylinder, that would sit against the frame here. And can you see how far that comes over? It's way too far for where it needs to be. So what I'm going to do is get a marker pen. So now I've got my marker pen. Now, if you remember, I used the edge of my bit of copper here on the very edge of the tool of the bending pipe. So that essentially is my start point. Now, there are going to be two of these, don't forget, from both sides of the engine. So you want the pipe to be sitting about the middle. Can you see that sitting shot? Yeah. So that needs to be sitting, not smack bang in the centre, but just to the side, because there's going to be a pair and they sit symmetrical. And then with your marker pen, she says trying to hold it all, because I've got, like I said, the longest bit of copper pipe out the shed. You want to mark sort of, it's going to sit about there. I know it's at the wrong end, but it's just for measuring and anchoring. So I've put a marker pen to where the edge of the frame is, and I'm going to use this as a marker to where I need to bend the actual exhaust. Hopefully that'll come clear when I show you what's happening. So I can move my build frame out of the way, and these should be set now. Be very careful to make sure you've got these the right way around when you bend them. So now I've just moved that out of the way, I'll bring it back in shot. So this one sits like this here. So this pipe, we've got the rod sticking out towards the rear of the loco, and this pipe needs to bend upward this way. So I'm going to lie that flat there. So in shot, can you see? Now that line there is the edge of my frame, so I can use that as a guide to the edge of my cylinder, and I know that this is roughly where I need to start my bend. Okay, so Probably should cut this copper pipe down. It'd be easier to do this if this pipe wasn't so long. Okay, so that pipe's about there. So fortunately, I have very dinky hands, and I reckon that isn't far off my thumb. Now this is about teasing. It's not about giving it a bend. And just keep checking that you've got it where you need to. It started me off. I bend off in the right place. And you just keep measuring, just keep checking to make sure that you're not putting a fold. Because if you're starting to do that, you're going to run into problems. So I've already run into problems because that's twisted. No, because it hasn't actually quite dried. Okay, I'm going to leave that one. It's still going around. I'm going to leave that one because that one's not set. I feel that one. That's better. I'll come back to that one. I told you these videos weren't professional and you're going to get problems in them as well. It'll be a good example of how to fix it if you do make a problem. So again, I'm just going to measure. So that bend needs to be there. Double checking on my engine, it fits there, so it's definitely coming up towards the flat there. That's about my thumb. Make sure it's tight. It's a bit nearer. I mean, ideally, it'd be nice if I had a smaller pipe bending tool, which I don't. That actually is a slightly tighter curve than that, but it's not too bad. So you can see how that guide has just helped me make sure that that's going to be in the right place. So when that goes on my air coat, is that shock? You can't see that. Let's bring that. So that is going to fit there like that nicely. It looks like it's pointing backwards. It really isn't. I think it's just the shot of the camera. There we go. So that's the first one done. Let's move that frame back and see if that other one has dried and is in a position for me to try and repair it. So no, it's not dried, it's gone round again. It's just going round and round, okay. Not great, because every time you bend metal, it weakens it. It's not what I wanted to do. So a little measure. Probably a bit closer than I needed it to be. Let's check again. Let's just overbend just a smidgen. And there we have it. So together, I'll bring my frame back into shot. When we hold these on there, they should sit nice and clear of each other. There we go. Not perfectly pointing upwards, but they're going to get tweaked as they get built on. They're going to get bent as well, I'm sure. So I'll leave that for now, just to make sure that Loctite is perfectly set before I screw them any further. This video is long enough as it is, and our next video will make a bit more progress. Thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you in our next video, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to our page. Thank you.